Welcome to the Weather Insights briefing. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. And today is Sunday, June 22nd, 2025. We're recording this about 10:30 in the morning. And Jeff, that activity in the Eastern Pacific continues to be active. We have disturbance one now with a 70% chance of development as it moves off to the west in that general direction. 70% chance of development over the next 7 days, 40% or 10% chance of development over the next 48 hours. And then the Atlantic, we have finally have something out there, although it's not much. Disturbance one with a 10% chance of development over the next 7 days. And if it does develop, and that's a big if, it will only affect shipping lanes. So fortunately, no impacts for land. Taking a look at the satellite, you can see that area out there in the Atlantic, fairly disorganized, but showing some broad circulation with that system. Then down to the intertropical convergence zone, long troughiness down there, but of course, no development. And you get over to the Eastern Pacific, where we saw disturbance one. That area still seems very active in that long, elongated trough there over Central America. A lot of shower activity is going to stay there throughout the week. So basically the same general pattern that we've seen over the last week or so. Not much in the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific, still staying fairly busy and active.
Yeah, it's pretty dry and stable here through the Atlantic basin. A lot of shear here. You can see the clouds of these wispy clouds of the high level cirrus kind of being blown off the tops of the thunderstorms here in the Caribbean. So a lot of wind shear here in the Caribbean and even the Gulf of Mexico. But it continues to be very favorable over here in the Eastern Pacific, and so we're cranking out storms right and left. It's the only basin really in the world that's doing anything right now. There's nothing going on in the West Pac. There's nothing really going on in the Atlantic. So we can, I mean, we're approaching this potential to be our F storm by what are we, June 20th here. So yeah, very active, almost a record start here to the Eastern Pacific season. And notice all this moisture here in Mexico. This is the remnant moisture of Hurricane Eric that made landfall last week. It was a big hurricane, category four,
Yeah.
that came in here to the southern coast of Mexico. Kind of pulled a little bit of a Otis,
Yep.
that rapid intensification coming up to the coast. Otis was in October. This was in June, and so a little bit, that not common, uncommon, if you will, to see a hurricane develop that quickly to that level in early June, early mid June here in the Eastern Pacific. So just really favorable over here. And that's really kind of helping to shut down the Atlantic side of things. I did want to zoom in a little bit on our little area of low pressure here. So this is the island of Bermuda right here, the U.S. East Coast, North Carolina here. So this is east of Bermuda by several hundred miles. And this is kind of an elongated trough axis through here. So you can kind of see this axis back to the south and the west. And just looking at the satellite, there appears to be possibly some circulation, maybe a mid-level circulation, possibly building down to the surface here. So we'll see. This is not completely uncommon and unheard of to get what we call these subtropical systems this time of year up here in the central Atlantic. And then over time, they can transition. If you get a lot of showers and thunderstorms near the center, they can kind of transition over to a truly tropical system. So we'll see. Like you mentioned, like this is really the only game in town at the moment. A 10% chance of some development out of this. And if you look at the ensembles, they are picking up on it. So we do have a little bit of a clustering here. This is for noon tomorrow, midday tomorrow, Monday. And
Hmm.
there's a little bit of a signal here, kind of as this moves off to the northeast. Some potential here for some development. You can see again the Eastern Pacific, kind of the hotbed there. This is the European for noon tomorrow, and this is the GFS, and a very similar kind of pattern here. Maybe more of an elongated type trough. The GFS here, not completely sure where any surface low would actually form along this trough axis. So we'll see. We'll see if something can get going and use up a name up here in the northern areas of the subtropics here in the Atlantic. And then again, the East Pacific looks relatively favorable again for another tropical storm, possibly hurricane this
Hmm.
week out in these areas. And then, transitioning from the tropics to kind of our local stuff, kind of got a little dry last week. We shifted from our really wet pattern the week before to a little bit of dryness as high pressure kind of moved from Mexico across Texas and that high is now set up in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic area. So very hot. We're talking
Yeah.
100-degree actual surface temperatures up in the Northeast,
Yeah.
in the big
Right.
cities, which is a big heat wave for them.
Yep.
And we're kind of on the underbelly of this ridge. So we're sitting down here on the southwest edge of it, and that opens us up to the influences from the tropics. So a pretty good southeasterly fetch of wind and moisture coming in. So we're going to get a pretty enhanced sea breeze front every afternoon. So we're going to get into this pattern of showers and thunderstorms near the coast offshore in the morning, translating inland to showers and thunderstorms midday into the afternoon hours before they kind of dissipate as we get into the evening hours. And Wednesday sort of kind of looking like a pretty wet day. We get kind of a disturbance moving westward along the Gulf Coast, and so Wednesday could be a little more active or the most active day this week, but probably a little bit of a higher rain chance. I'd be anywhere from 30 to 50% each afternoon, all the way through the end of the week, possibly into next weekend, as we kind of sit on the south side of this high. And it's been a long time since we've had such a fairly active pattern. Look at the monsoon out here in West
Yeah.
Texas, New Mexico. This is some of that moisture coming up from the remnants of Eric, but also this is a very favored pattern sitting up on the west side of the big high over at the east coast. And so, if you want rain out in New Mexico, this is probably going to come at the expense of some flash flooding. But a healthy looking monsoon pattern here in mid June for areas of eastern and central New Mexico back down into West Texas. That's going to do a number on these really big drought conditions out here. So some good stuff. Unfortunately, if you're in Central Texas, back down towards west of San Antonio, we have the drought that's still ongoing. We've had rain. We've had some recovery in the Edwards Aquifer and the Highland Lakes, but not enough. I mean, it's we're moving in the right direction, but we're not to the point where things are okay out there. So still drought conditions. Unfortunately, you just look a little too far east for the monsoon and a little too far west from the Gulf influences here. We'll have to see if the Gulf opens up a little bit more and you get some of this activity a little bit further west toward that I-35 corridor, but you really need it west out in the hill country and back down in southwest Texas to help some of those lakes out there. So moving in the right direction out there, but maybe not a lot of help this week. Honestly, this time of year, it's probably going to take some sort of significant tropical wave or tropical system to kind of move up in this area to really help out with those conditions up there with the water supply. So we'll see. We'll see how things go this week. Kind of quiet in the Atlantic on the tropics. Not uncommon for June. It's not. It's not. June we can get I think the average is a tropical storm every other year, a named storm every other year in the Atlantic. So we can go through a quiet June and not have anything. We can go through all the way through July and not have anything, and we can rack up numbers still pretty high in August and September. So this isn't. Yeah, it's a slow start to the season, but it doesn't really mean anything for the season or how many storms we're going to have, or anything like that. Things will gradually become more favorable as we move forward through the season, and we'll eventually get a storm out there somewhere in the Atlantic. But the good news is here with the rain chances this week, highs only in the upper 80s, low 90s, which is for us what it could be compared to what we've seen recently in the recent past year. This is great for this summer.
More normal, yeah, yeah. And to your point with the drought monitor, I checked that out, Thursday's drought monitor, and yeah, the reds, the extreme areas are shrinking. That's good news, especially around El Paso. That's really good to see because they're all an extreme from El Paso down the Rio Grande, that corridor right there. But yeah, that sloth right there, that's pretty dry. We could use that rain to move over that area, and hopefully that high will move off a little bit more to the east, or at least weaken, and some of those storms can get over that in that area. But yeah, and to your point about development, I go back to Alicia. I know a lot because I was here in 1983, first named storm of the season in 1983, and that was August 19th. But nobody remembers that was the first named storm. All they remember is there was a Category 3 hurricane in Houston that year. So yeah, I got to keep the guard up. And that's why we have these tropical updates once a week, just to keep you informed. Of course, you can do that by subscribing to our Weather Insights YouTube channel. Make sure you turn on the alerts so you get the alerts for the latest tropical update. Also be sure to check out our Weather Insights website for Jeff's blog. And you can follow us on social media, any of the social media platforms, Weather Insights for daily forecasts. Jeff, thank you very much. Have a good one.